We're live. Hello, Brandy, George, Stipix, Mom, Chris, Lyle, Kiana, Drew, Amanda. Hi, Trey.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Fran. Matthew. Hi, Jana and Augie. Good to see everybody, and hopefully good to see all of us on one screen. You guys don't have to search for 3 videos within 45 minutes. Hi, Tracy and Lee and Mark.
Good morning, everyone.
David, Jeff and Tammy. Hi, Paul. We have a little bit of a lag. We're pushing from Zoom, so the comments will come to us even a little bit later than usual. So please do post your comments, and we'll acknowledge them as best we can. Hi, Tori. Let us know how you're doing. Paul says, "Good morning, all. Interesting idea."
We gave this a test run on Friday.
Yeah. And
missed it. So we tried to work out some kinks, but probably will encounter more.
Hi, Carolyn, John, Aaron, Brittany. Good morning. We're excited. The 3 of us are excited to be able to play off each other a little more. It is so awkward talking to yourself.
Y'all don't even know.
It'll be nice not preaching to my own face with my own canned laughs at the right times.
Yeah. But he's only going to be looking at us, so we might be like, I'm just kidding. We will not do that.
We'll be like, yeah, or
That's what Cozy does every time I bring her a meal, which is 3 times a day. She takes a bite and then either gives me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I don't know where she picked that up, but I don't appreciate it because it's usually a thumbs down.
Haddon and Ellis do that as well. And there's a correlation between how hard I've worked on a meal and their thumb going down.
I know. The harder I work on a meal, the less she likes it. Anyway. So good
Mark
morning.
says, is this Hollywood Squares? I kind of know what that show is, and I kind of don't.
Oh, Mark, don't let him do that. Do you see what he just did to you, Mark? Did you see that?
That was ageism.
Let's see. Someone else said something. Good morning from the cabin. Did I say hi to Forrest? I meant to if I didn't. Okay, announcements. What do we got?
Oh, I thought Fran was going.
Jordan said hello. Hi, Jordan. Aaron loves the game show, so.
Who's the next game show? What are the announcements?
Yeah, that would be fun.
What is supporting the Round Rock Area Serving Center?
Yes. Yeah. Paul, if you have any updates on the Round Rock Serving Center that we need to know, please put them in the comments. I took the graphic down. I've been putting in the emails just because it needs to be updated, but keep giving to the Round Rock Area Serving Center. Their work has always been important. It's so important now more than ever. They're doing good stuff. And our very own Paul Varizo is a volunteer there, is there a lot. So thank you, Paul, for being that presence in the community and our community, and let us know how we can continue to support.
Yeah, and on that note, Heather took plastic bags by there this week, and they told her no more plastic bags. We have, for a while they needed them, but now they're good for years, they said.
That's kind of part of why I took the graphic down. So it's like, we really need plastic bags. What else? You can also continue to support our community. If you go to the guide, you guys let us know that you can see the link to the guide and get to it.
All right.
You can go to the guide to see how to give to us and to the Serving Center. But all of our work is obviously member funded. We don't receive anything from any organizations or affiliations. We sort of are grassroots in that sense. So thank you so much to all our our regular givers. And if you want to learn more about becoming one, you can go to our guide.
Speaking of grassroots, take a look at, if you haven't, the Austin Justice Coalition and sign up for their newsletters and their emails. That's a great way to get involved with a local Black-led organization right now.
Yes. Yeah. I've actually, in this quarantine, so like over 3 months now, have signed up to be a monthly giver to 2 places. And one was the Round Rock Area Serving Center and one was Austin Justice Coalition. So those are, I mean, both those places are doing important work. And the AJC is putting out educational tools and they're leading the actual in real life movement in our area. So following them is really important. And so
and they're local, like you said. And I know a lot of people I talk to these days are really passionate about localism and finding some local way to be involved. So
yeah,
there are 2 local connect points right there.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And David just commented, I always have a hard time getting to the guide. A lot of people are casting onto their TV. By the way, that is hilarious. That's funny to imagine us on a big screen, but
televangelist, finally.
Read the guide other than we like for you to participate in the litany, and litany is there for you to read. But I mean, you're not gonna, and then
or something to where
if you pull it up on a different device, you can kind of see the flow of the service, which we have changed up a little bit this week too. So one other announcement is just that Brittany's ordination is in 1 week from today. Obviously, it's not ideal to do an ordination virtually, but I did want you guys to know that it's coming up on Sunday and to please plan to show up. And if you are in our local community, I don't think it's too late to send a video to Steve if you have forgotten. But Brittany would love that. That was her one wish, was a video. Even before all this took place, she wanted a video. So let's do it. And then I was going to say, oh, Brittany's driving down. She's driving down to stay with her parents for the month tomorrow. And so pray for her as she travels by herself across the country. And she will be here. Her and I, we're going to figure out some kind of a situation outside so that she can at least be in proximity to me on Sunday. And we'll see what else we can come up with that's creative. But yeah, plan to be a part. So important.
Paul did add some comments about the Round Rock Area Serving Center. If I can get to them. We've changed food distribution and help with rent, utilities. People have to go through the portal. Okay. Vouchers. Okay, great. And Paul, continue to tell us how we can support you all doing work there. What does that look like tangibly for us?
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, are we good?
I think we're good.
So good.
Okay. Matt and I are going to hide out for a minute so Fran can get on with the kids' message. So kids, gather around.
Yes, kiddos, gather around. I wonder what room you think I'm in. Where am I? What room am I sitting in? I'm sitting in a weird room, huh? And I'm sitting on the floor. I'm in the bathroom. It's one of the few rooms in my house that doesn't have any windows or any ambient light because I wanted to do something a little bit strange this morning, a little bit different. That's kind of interesting because if we were all in person somewhere, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm having a little bit of gratitude about this, and I want to show you why I'm a little bit grateful for this. I'll show you. Let's see. Can you see me? Not very well, huh? Can't see me very well. I turned the light off. It's dark in here, huh? What kiddos do I have here? Any? Looking at the comments. Well, check this out. You guys remember that song? You probably know it. It goes like this. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I thought I was thinking about this because the other day, a woman who is a friend of mine, she's one of my friends and she's also one of my teachers and mentors. She reminded me of something really important. She said to me, darkness cannot dispel light, but light can dispel darkness. And I've been very encouraged lately, and maybe you have too, because I have been seeing a lot of people standing up and using their voices to protest against injustice and to protest against racism. And it made me think that every time I do that, it's like me shining a little light in a place with no windows, in a place with no sunlight, a place that's kind of dark. And maybe you've been seeing on TV or on the news about everything that's going on in the world and all the protests that have been happening and all of the people who are raising their voices. And I'm just one small person, kind of like this little candle in this dark room. I'm one small person, but I'm trying to also raise my voice to speak out and to defend people who are who are the victims of marginalization and oppression, who are not being treated kindly by our society. And I'm doing that in small ways. Like, for instance, right now I have on a Black Lives Matter pin that someone gave me, but I'm also doing that in some larger ways. And here's a fun thing. Imagine, see how dark it is in here? And if we start, oh, see, that one's not gonna work. That's why I brought two, because I like to be prepared for eventualities. And, oh, see, now look. And possibilities. So I forgive that candle a friend, it gets a little bit more bright. And if I give those another friend, oh, it's getting a little lighter in here, isn't it? Can keep on adding friends and voices. People who are raising their voices and trying to work for change and trying to speak out. We're all like little lights. And I even have, some of my candles are different. This one is kind of a rainbow candle. Can you see that? And then I have some short candles like this. Candles of all shapes and all sizes. And even though that all the shapes and sizes of the candles are different, some of them even have fragrances and some of them don't. Some of them are kind of bigger and some of them are tiny. I have blue one here. All kinds of candles here. See how bright it's getting in here? Can you tell? It's getting lighter and lighter. The more people, the more friends that I add. That one doesn't want to light. The more friends I add through my, look at this. Oh, look how bright it's getting. Can you see that? No, my lighter really won't light. I brought some matches too because I thought this might happen. You just never know when a lighter is gonna work. There we go. Yeah. Look at all these tiny lights, but they are joined together. There's some more. They're like people. These lights are like people. They're like people speaking out and using their voices and doing their work to make a better world. And to create a more just world. To create a safer world. a world where all kinds of people of all different colors and all different shapes and sizes and all different cultures and backgrounds can be safe and happy. So now I have all these lights and they're working together to make one big light. Look how bright. Check it out. All these candles. Imagine if I filled this whole room with candles, with little bitty lights. Imagine how bright the room would be. See how much brighter it is now than it was just a few minutes ago when I only had one candle. Well, I think this is a great example of how when we get together and when we work together and we use our voices like our light, we can make the world, we can dispel the darkness, and we can make the world a better place. And when we all join forces with our work and with our light, we can make more change. So it might be tempting for me to think, this is my original candle, that my one tiny little light doesn't matter so much. But I want you to know that your little light, my little light, everyone's little light, matters so much. And our little lights can help dispel darkness and sadness and unkindness and bring love into the world, particularly when we all start to work together. So, would you like to sing the song again? We can sing it. Here we go. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. These little lights of mine, I'm gonna let them shine. These little lights of mine, I'm gonna let them shine. Let them shine, let them shine, let them shine. All right, guys. Have a great day. It's Matthew's turn, and he is going to bring a sermon for the grown-ups now.
It's not really Matthew's turn.
It's not my turn at all. No, it's totally Aurelia's turn.
We went over it, but it's okay. We've only been doing this for 3 months the exact same way. So
We mixed it up this week, actually.
mixed it up. Check out the guide.
Look at the guide.
Yeah, so
Like we got a few people.
We're moving, spoiler alert, into the direction of a more similar format of what we've been used to in our in-person gatherings now that we're all on one screen. And so I want to read the litany to you guys and want you to participate with me. But first, I just wanted to acknowledge that the litany is coming from our lectionary reading from Genesis for this week. And all the Matthew's sermon is on the gospel reading, but all of these lectionary readings always tie together. And so the lectionary reading for the First Testament is Genesis 18, 1 through 15, and 21, 1 through 7. It's really long. I'm not going to read it to you, but I wanted to point out something I noticed this morning when I was looking at it. And I always love in these ancient Israel, looking at the way that they operated when it came to social norms, specifically with hospitality. Hospitality was so important, and it was political in some ways, and it was ingrained in the social fabric of the community. And when you really understand what hospitality meant in ancient Israel, it really is radical for us to imagine that kind of hospitality now. So if you looked at that text from Genesis, you would see, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to sort of reference it, that it's the story of when Abraham receives the promise that that Sarah's going to bear a son, even though she's barren. And it's this moment that's really important. And she does become pregnant, even though she's older in age. She's been barren. It's really a miracle and a gift from God. But leading up to this promise being fulfilled, uh, God appears to Abraham. It says in the reading, it says that Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. And this is what he does, okay? When he sees 3 men near him, he runs from his entrance of his home to meet them. He bows to the ground. He says, "Don't leave. Let me bring some water to you. Let me wash your feet. Rest under this tree." He provides shade. He says, "Let me bring some bread so you can refresh yourself, so that before you pass on, you can find refreshment." And then he picks out their best flour and has Sarah make these cakes. And he takes a calf from their herd, like one of the best ones, and prepares it. And he takes curds and milk and he sets that before them. And he offers this hospitality to them that is so incredibly generous. And then they deliver this message of God's promise to him. And so I want to just point out that radical hospitality and generosity preceded the promise. And I want you guys to remember that as we are doing all of this anti-racism work and all this justice and liberative work, we need to remember that our own hospitality is part of the work. Our own hospitality to the work is part of the work. And so how can you be hospitable and generous in relation to this work that's happening right now? And it can be so tiny as sharing a meal. It can be so tiny as offering someone shade in terms of emotionally or physically or whatever. How can you be hospitable in your life? It just might play a part in the promise itself being realized of the kingdom of God on earth. And to me, this is such a hope-filled truth that leads into our litany that Fran wrote based on this story. And I wanted to just give that kind of, I don't know, I wanted to give that encouragement to you as a part of this litany. When we read these litanies, Fran spends so much time on, there's so much substance to them. So let's keep all this hope-filled truth in mind as we read the litany together. And I'm so excited that Fran and Matt can respond when you guys are responding. So let's do it together. It is in the guide. I hope everyone's there. Janice said, "Offer shade, don't throw it." All right. Yes. Okay, so this is the litany for forgotten hope. You can go to Fran's Patreon as well to access this later. Okay, I'm going to read the regular print and you guys can respond in the bold. God, the times we live in are chaotic and divisive,
revealing systemic injustice.
and institutionalized inequity.
We feel the unrest of our nations.
We feel the undercurrent of fear.
We feel the stress of uncertainty.
As Abraham and Sarah had given up hopes,
so we have at times had cause to give up hope.
As they had forgotten your promise,
so we often forget your promises.
As they waited in a foreign land,
so we wait in a land that seems foreign to us.
We need new eyes to see hope's glimmer.
Along the edges of society.
We need new ears to hear hope's song.
Amidst the discord.
We need to behold the good future.
At the horizon of now.
We can make the world a better place.
We can bring justice to all.
We can affect changes in policy and practice.
We can make our society more loving and inclusive.
We can right history's wrongs.
We can bring heaven to earth.
Oh God, let us not laugh when we hear the good news,
but become its conspirators,
its imaginers and engineers,
the people who keep hope alive.
And when you pass by with your servants,
let us be ready to welcome you.
Ready to welcome the new earth.
When it's born out of this barren land. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll turn off our screen so that Matt can get going. And Matt, don't forget to record.
I've got a note. I've got a note to myself. Let me do that. Okay, everyone, good morning. I actually want to begin reading the quote that I included in your guide from the author Paulo Coelho. Let me read that for us and just let us sit with that for a few seconds. The life of a free person is an offense to those attached to appearances and rules. Think about that a moment. The life of a free person is an offense to those attached to appearances and rules. So we are not currently in a sermon series. So as we often do, we turn to the designated lectionary readings that the church across the whole world, many of the churches across the world, will go to the same scriptures on a given Sunday, demonstrating unity across the world. And it turns out that the gospel reading for this week seemed incredibly appropriate for this time that we are living in right now. So let me read that for us. Matthew 9:37 through 10:23. Jesus said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest." Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples, and he gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. And he said to them, "As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven is near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, so give without payment. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics or sandals or a staff, for laborers deserve their food. Whatever town or village you enter, find out who in it is worthy and stay there until you leave. As you enter the house, greet it. If the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. If it's not worthy, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake the dust off your feet as you leave that house or town. Truly, I tell you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. Let me jump in and just say here that this reference to Sodom and Gomorrah is included because it's a story about hospitality and exploitation. It's not a story about non-sanctioned consensual relationships between adults. Okay, back to the scripture reading. So Jesus continues, "See, I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." Non-dualistic thinking there. "Beware of them, for they will hand you over to councils and flog you in their synagogues. You will be dragged before governors and kings because of me, as a testimony to them and the Gentiles. When they hand you over and block and unfriend and belittle and gaslight you on social media or at the 4th of July barbecue coming up, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you at that time. For it is not you who speak, but it is the Spirit of your divine parent speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise against parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by all because of my name. But the one who endures to the end will be saved." We hear the voice of God in the reading of these words. Thanks be to God. What a time to be reading these words. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. It is harvest time, Jesus says. And unfortunately, there are far too few people willing to do the work, the dirty, sweaty, hard, exhausting, dirt beneath the fingernails work. And so Jesus says, pray, pray that more people will do this important work. And that's who I want to talk to this morning. I actually have a very specific audience in mind that I want to speak to this morning. I want to speak to those of us who are being asked to labor and to join in with the ongoing struggle for dignity and safety that is due to every human being by birthright. Specifically, I want to talk to those of us who are on the fence about joining in, or we feel like our only option of participation is to be the caricature of wokeness that's belittled by some loud narrative gatekeeper on the extreme. That's not our only option for participation. Don't let them talk you out of God's harvest field where you are being called to labor. Over the past several weeks, I found myself feeling a wide range of feelings and responses to this incredible time that we're living in, with marches and protests and violence and movements for reform and abolishment. I'm reviewing a lot of history, and I think significant history is being made and documented largely because we have phones with cameras that can do that right now. I think this will be a movement in which the history is written from a democratized point of view, from the street level point of view, and I'm excited about that. I feel incredible gratitude to be alive right now through this because I think it's a turning point in our society. I think it's a culmination time. I think it's a time of reckoning, accountability, and change. And to use the language of our scripture this morning, I think it's a harvest time. Can you see it? The Black Lives Matter movement is being carried all across the globe, and attention is being given like never before to the many ways that violence is enacted against Black, Indigenous, and people of color. It is harvest time. And more of us are being called to participate, not because we are the owners and the CEOs and the managers of the field, not because we are the benefactors that donated seed and fertilizer, not because we have the right techniques for harvesting and processing. No, our brothers and sisters of color who have been doing this work for 400 years know all this and more better than we do. They are our instructors in harvesting change and in embodying voice and God-given anger. The field has been watered and fertilized with their blood and their sweat and their dignity and their resources. And we are being invited to be laborers, not saviors, because it's the laborers that are too few. After Jesus tells his followers that they need to pray for more laborers, it says he gathered them together and he told them, all right, time to go to work. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. He doesn't say to them, wait for the opportune time when the narrative shifts and more momentum builds. Or wait until it's more clear that history will write you into the hero category rather than the villain category. He doesn't stop with just his prayer and instructions to pray for more laborers and his thoughts and prayers. Instead, he kicks them out of the nest like a good mama bird, and he sends them out with a pretty tall order. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. What? Maybe you feel like this is what's being asked of you as you enter this tall order that seems daunting, seems like a mountain, seems impossible. You want me to do what? But as you enter into this anti-racism, anti-white supremacy, harvest labor work, maybe that's what you feel like this tall order is being placed on you. Will laugh at and mock you to your face when that happens. When it does, just shake the dust from your feet because it's not about you. Their arguments against you will often be personal, ad hominem attacks like, you traitor, you uncritical snowflake, or you'll understand more when you're older. All of your missteps and your slip-ups will be pointed out publicly. But this work, it's not about you. It's not about your feelings. It's not about your ego. It's about the harvest. So Jesus says, be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Jesus continues, it's likely that you'll be handed over to the most uncivil of civil authorities. And worse, you'll likely be at odds with your own family members. They will disagree with how you harvest and when you harvest, and that you aren't following all the sanctioned harvest decorum. They will be offended by the way you do everything because you see, the life of a free person is an offense to those attached to appearances and rules. It will come at a cost to you. That cost might be some relationships. And then Jesus concludes with, the one who endures to the end will be saved. Or the harvest season is long, incredibly long. This is an intergenerational endurance event, not a sprint. Now, I haven't spoken to an important part of this text yet, and it's a word that I want us to spend a few minutes thinking about and focus in on, and it's the word harvest. I've used the word a lot, but what does that word mean? What did it mean then? What does it mean now? The word harvest, well, it means a couple of things. Of course, it means gathering mature food before it spoils in the field. But it's also used in our scriptures several times to refer to bringing God into God's kingdom, into God's wholeness, a system where life for everyone flourishes in God's abundant life, where the lion and the lamb live together in peace, and where resources are allocated to books, not to bullets and batons. And I propose to you today, I say to you today, we are living in a divine harvest time right now. And what we are being called to labor, and what are we being called to labor for? What are we being called to harvest? Where is the Spirit of God at work in our world? What is it that's coming to fruition? Open your eyes and see that the harvest of our time right now, the harvest is the right to breathe. The harvest is the right to breathe. Let me center that for us for the remainder of what I have to say in the next few minutes. Across our nation and our world, our brothers and sisters in humanity are saying to us and to the systems that we have created and we uphold every day, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's this phrase, it's a distilled condemnation of the innumerable ways that they live with a knee on their neck. It's the most damning and prophetic sermon I've ever heard. Write it on your mirror, tape it to your refrigerator, tack it up on your wall. It is one of the most powerful sermons you will ever hear in your life. I can't breathe. Put it up somewhere where you can see it, because if there's anyone who should care about breathing, it should be spiritual people. In our tradition, it is said that God breathed everything into existence, and that God enlivened our own bodies with God's divine breath. And the word breath in the scriptures is the same word for spirit. And so I'm telling you, there is nothing more spiritual. There is no more spiritual work that we could ever do than helping people breathe and listening to them when they say, I can't breathe. Truth is, we live in a world and a society where not everyone has the same access to breath. This is, believe it or not, a controversial statement. I am dumbfounded that is a controversial statement, but it's true. We live in a world and a society where not everyone has the same access to breath. Here's what I mean by that. Often, when someone says, I can't breathe, it's because the knee of police brutality and immunity is on their neck, and they literally can't breathe. They literally can't. And there is tremendous harvest work to do here, and the laborers are few. Maybe you can be one of those laborers. You can fight for and demand reform, especially if you are on the inside of the system in any way. You can labor for breath. Sometimes when someone says, I can't breathe, it's often because the knee of incarceration and the prison industrial complex is on their necks. According to Michelle Alexander, author of The New Jim Crow, a book I very, very highly recommend, she says that 1 in 3 young African American men will serve time in prison if current trends continue. 1 in 3, 1 in 3. And in some cities, more than half of all young adult Black men are currently under correctional control, like prison, jail, probation, parole. They can't breathe because they live in a system that does whatever it can to make sure that Black communities are upended and turned over, that Black men have criminal records in order to stigmatize and control them and to cut off future economic and housing opportunities. This is the new Jim Crow, the new covert white supremacy, and it's being exposed for what it is these days because we are in a harvest season. It's pretty well known and accepted that the war on drugs was largely a proxy war against Black communities. That is being exposed for what it is. But the laborers are few. Maybe you can fight for legal reform regarding drug laws and prison sentences and things like that. When someone says, I can't breathe, it's often because the knee of economic violence is on their necks, restricting access to resources, education, housing, the labor market, etc. Think of the practice of making those with a felony record ineligible for public housing. And put that in the context of how communities of color are often over-policed and over-incarcerated. Think of the redlining by the federal government, our federal government, I use our, not in the most inclusive way, but certainly in a way that represents just some people. But think of the redlining by the federal government that it prevented home loans being granted to Black communities. Think of the proliferation of exploitative financial products and institutions that are in Black communities. Think of the 1929 City of Austin Master Plan developed by the masters, in which they said we're going to take desirable land from Black communities and we're going to relocate them east of I-35 to the undesirable industrial areas of the city. Did you know that's why our communities of color are largely in East Austin? Land was taken from them. And the city literally cut off utilities to Black communities who refused to move until they finally moved. This is all economic violence that destroys generations of wealth. If economics and finance and city planning, these are some of the intersections at which you stand, how can you labor? Again, we don't all have to labor in the same ways. We're just being called to labor. The harvest is plentiful here, but there are few willing to get dirt beneath their fingernails and beneath their white collar shirts. When someone says, I can't breathe, it's because of their lack of access to adequate and affordable healthcare and other social determinants of health like clean air, safe workplaces, etc. Data seems to indicate that people of color are overrepresented by COVID infections and illnesses and deaths. And I'm praying that the Lord of the harvest will send laborers into the field in this area, which means if you work in anything related to healthcare or healthcare policy, that you will labor to remove knees from necks through how you give care at the bedside or how you create spreadsheets and PowerPoints and policies. Because you aren't merely doing your job. Instead, when you do that, you are laboring in God's harvest field. When someone says, I can't breathe, it's because they are perhaps at an underfunded and under-resourced school. We could go on and on and on talking about all of these instances of I can't breathe, talking about lack of access to adequate food, living in what's known as a food desert. We could talk about gerrymandered voting districts and voting machines that don't work. We could talk about how theology and faith has been co-opted to only be about getting people to heaven, but not getting them to be laborers in God's harvest fields. But Jesus says, open your eyes and look at the fields, look around. They are ripe for harvest. My goodness, how do you want to work in this field? There is so much that you can do. We don't all have to do the same job. We just have to get out there and labor. Open your eyes. And the question really that this text presents to us today is, will you labor? Will you be the answer to what Jesus prays? You don't have to labor like me. I don't have to labor like you. The Apostle Paul says that we are many distinct parts with distinct jobs, but we all make up a whole unified body. Will you bring the skills that you have, your unique knowledge of your industry, your unique passions, and will you labor? Will you engage your unique areas of influence, like with your family members, with your children, with your friends, with your coworkers, and will you labor? Will you respond to the breath of God blowing across our world, spreading a fire of God's radical, transformative, changing, inclusive, powerful, domination system upending love that's calling us to labor alongside? May God give us courage and creativity as we each respond to that call. Amen.
Well, hot damn. Oh my God.
Wasn't it the whole time?
Wow.
I was sleeping the whole time.
Paul said, you're pretty good at this preachy thing, Matt.
I actually could see there was a lot going on Facebook, and I didn't want to give it my energy though, because not everybody and everything has earned the right to have my limited and sacred energy and attention. So
yeah.
Well, that was incredible because you pieced together so much reality with the text. It was a beautiful exegesis, even your commentary on the text itself when you read it. But then piecing it all together with that metaphor of I can't breathe in the grounded in the reality of breath and the spiritual meaning of breath, and then tying it to the realities in Austin. It was a really good sermon. Thank you for.
Okay, thank you.
You're a good preacher.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm like, okay, can we take some breath?
I'm honored to be on the screen with you.
I actually couldn't see you because I was reading my sermon. So
I know. But I was going like this the whole time.
I know. I was like, wow. Okay. Well, we want to have space for processing. And so you did record that, right? I hope you did.
I pushed record, but I don't know if it worked.
Well, we have the whole video up, but we'll put what we can get on the podcast. And I just know that's going to be one I'm going to go back and listen to again. There was some really, really good stuff in there. So I don't mean to transition too quickly. We're still figuring out how to do this one video thing. But we're going to transition now. So I will say, here's my transition from Matt's sermon to the next thing. Matt's talking about how you will labor. We have a beautiful group of laborers in our community that we call deacons. That was pretty good, wasn't it?
That was a good segue.
And here's one now. Heather Henzelka is the head deacon of our group of deacons, and they have been doing such good work. I'm gonna mute myself so Heather can tell you more. She has an announcement that we're excited about.
Am I unmuted right now?
You're
yeah.
unmuted.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad you transitioned that well, because I was like, how is that that seems odd to move on to me. Well, I'm Heather, and I am the lead deacon. In the last few weeks, we have been asking for deacon nominations to add to what I've been calling our deacon force. And so in the last few weeks, several of you have nominated some deacons that to be recommended. And just to explain what deacons do, I kind of see them as like the hands and the feet behind the scenes. Like you may not always see us, especially now. But some of the things that we do like receptions for ordinations, other church social events that we can help with, community support like meal trains and the deacon door dashes, communion typically, but as of lately not. So we have received multiple nominations, and on Friday we reached out to, or this last week we reached out to these nominees, and we had 4 people that accepted their nominations. Yay! The 4 that have received and accepted are Joyce Hawley, Sarah O'Brien, Naomi Young, and Paul Verizzo. So we're super excited to add on to our group. We've been needing help, and we think that these 4 would be a great asset. So what happens in the next few weeks, per the bylaws, we have to give like a 2-week waiting period before we vote. You'll be receiving more instructions on what that's going to look like. So that's the process moving forward. You'll be receiving more information in the next few weeks about them and about the process for voting. So be on the lookout.
Thank you, Heather. Is that all you have?
I think so. Did I miss anything?
No, I was just going to say, if you are a part of our local community, the deacons function is really a local function. And if you are a part of our local community and you consider yourself a part of our community, please make sure you're on our email list so that you can be a part of the process of getting those recommendations voted in. And that's going to be something that's probably going to happen over our email and local community group. And then did you mention ordination?
No,
Yeah.
There will be an ordination, like a formal ordination in July.
Yes. And so we love ordinations around here. They mean a lot. It's a really meaningful ritual, and we ordain our deacons, and we will ordain our deacons in July. So we just are excited about that as a part of the process of celebrating and affirming them, because they really do a lot of behind the scenes work. We're so grateful. Thank you so much, Heather. I know you can't see a bunch of people, but I know you're like squirming in your seat talking in front of the camera right now. So thank you for doing that.
This is much better than a whole group. So yes. I liked it. My hands are sweaty and I hate speaking. So.
Great.
I think we're done. I think we're going to do the benediction now. Does that sound good? Benediction's in your guide. And I'll just read that and you guys can respond in the bowl. And at home, I hope you're reading it too. And I'm getting a lot of comments from people saying they love this format. I think we love it too. So read the benediction, and we'll see you on Tuesday for Coffee with a Guest Pastor with
it's David. I realized that I'm supposed to say it is my friend who I've been friends with for a long time from when Jordan and I used to live in Iowa City. His name is David Borger-Gurman, and he's one of the pastors of Sanctuary Church of Iowa City, which is where Jordan and I attended when we lived there, and consider those guys, part of our home. So very excited.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see. That'll be our next thing on Tuesday, right? Tuesday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me read this benediction. Lord, you are ascending God. You sent your word to create. You sent your son to reveal. You sent your spirit to empower. You sent your church to labor.
Send us, O God, to renew the earth. Lead us by your spirit and your word. As your people, we now go. By our love, we'll make you known.
People of God, you are sent. Go for peace.
Amen.
Amen.